There are still some seats down the front. If people don't come who are standing at the back, still some seats down the front. If you stood up at the back, can I ask that you come down and take a seat? There are spare seats. Keep moving forward.
No. Comrades, there's still seats down here. As we said at the back, there's lots of fire safety inspectors in the room. We'll probably have a point of view about those doors being blocked. So can we please fill these seats? There's a whole row here. Come on, someone's got to make the move. I'll pick on Basil and Branch in a minute. Thank you.
Right, comrades, this is my last plea. We do need the walkways and doorways clear. So there are empty seats down the side and at the front. These are fire exits. There's a whole row to my left, there's a whole row to my right. There's plenty of seats, so we've got to keep the walkways and aisles clear and the doors. Remember, scan your QR code, log your attendance. Thank you. Right, comrades, sisters, brothers, we are going to make a start, and the first thing I'd like to do is give a big round of applause for the FBU pipe band. They're absolutely brilliant. Right, a little bit of housekeeping first, and I've said it I don't know how many times now. There are fire exits to my left, to my right, and to the rear. There is no fire drill planned for today, so if the fire alarm goes off, let's exit the building safely. Also, obviously we want you all to be enthusiastic today, applaud the speakers, but it is an FBU event, so I want to remind you all of the FBU's rules on treating others with dignity and respect, and to remind you all of our statement on sexual harassment that can be found on our website. Okay, right, everybody, thank you for coming here today to the National Rally, where we are calling out the new Westminster government that for them it's now time to deliver. I know many of you have had long journeys. Big shout out to the 100+ Region 1 members who made the journey down from Scotland. Also to those who made long treks over from Northern Ireland, Wales, and of course Cornwall and Devon. As we all know, you can probably get to Spain quicker on an EasyJet than you can to some remote areas of that region. Also a special welcome and thanks to some international guests. We have Pablo Sanchez-Sentalas from the European Public Services Union, EPSU, who has travelled over from Brussels just to be with us for today. We have Mauro Giulianella from the National Coordinator and Andrea Nevi, both from the FPCGIL, which is the Italian Public Services Union, and they both represent firefighters in that category. We also have Nikos Lavranos, President of the Pan-Hellenic Federation of Fire Service Employees. And of course, thanks to you all who've had to contend with the joys of getting here today in the rain. We've got an impressive lineup here. We've got speakers from the front line, we've got MPs, a couple of our international guests are going to be speaking, and to finish before you all head into Parliament, we will be hearing from General Secretary Matt Rett. But before we start the proceedings, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to talk about the purpose of the rally today and what we're here to do. This is, as far as we're aware, the first National Trade Union rally of its kind since the general election. And we all know what happened in July, but it's worth saying it again. The Tories got absolutely walloped. They got well and truly dumped. And quite rightly so. They absolutely deserve it. Everybody in this room knows what they've done to the Fire and Rescue Service. The jobs that have been lost, the stations that have been closed, the pay and pensions that have been attacked. And now we've got a new government. And whatever you may think of it, it presents to us an opportunity. An opportunity to now get improvements in our Fire and Rescue Service. So that's why we're here today, because you, the front line, are the professional voice of the Fire and Rescue Service. And we're here to demand investment so that those that work in the fire service can do their jobs to the best of their ability as safely as possible, and in doing so keep our communities safe. We're here to demand national standards to end the decades of defragmentation in our service. National standards that must be informed and set by a statutory advisory body with a seat at that table for firefighters. And we're here to demand workers' rights apply to all, so that we can stand up for ourselves and defend our service without the threat of reprisals or dismissals. But most importantly, comrades, we're not here to make those demands just in this room. We're here to lobby MPs over the road in Parliament when the event ends today, and that's where we all need to be heading. Everyone should have a pack on the seat. Here we are with my props. Yep, you should all have one of those. In there's two documents. The first one details the 10 demands that we are making to the new Westminster government and to all governments of all nations. And the second is probably the most important one for today. The document goes into more detail on the issues we want you to raise with your MPs and designed to help you in those conversations with those MPs and decision makers. If you haven't got a pre-arranged meeting with your MP, you can still meet them today. Ricardo will briefly cover that in a simple process at the conclusion of the event. today, but this is just how you can green card your MP. And please, I cannot stress enough, make sure that you tell us you've attended today using the QR code, and also, importantly for us, we need the feedback from yourselves. We need to know what MPs you have visited and what they have said regarding our campaign and obviously our calls. We need to know which MPs are going to back us on this campaign. Comrades, we're at a turning point. What we do now will shape the future of the Fire and Rescue Service for decades to come. After 14 years of cuts and deregulation, now is a time to make the case for our service and our communities. Some of that is about what the FBU does at head office. But first and foremost, the union is its members. We need to mobilise, we need to get organised at every fire station, at every control room, every training centre, everywhere that our members work in the fire service. We need to organise locally, regionally and nationally. We need to find politicians at every level of government and in all governments and push them for the investment we need to bring our service out of the crisis that it's fallen into. Comrades, that work starts today when this rally ends and we all head into Parliament to see our MPs. So enjoy the day, go lobby the MPs. Thanks, comrades. We all know that since 2010, funding for our service has been slashed. That's reflected in response times, in the quality of fire cover and in the conditions of our work as well. So our first speaker today is going to talk about exactly that. So please give a big round of applause for Lewis Clark from Region 1.
Comrades, my name is Lewis Clark and I've served as a firefighter in Scotland for 10 years now. We all know the first-hand effect and impact that having 14 years of Tory austerity has had on our jobs and our service. They spent their time and power chipping away at the fire service, withdrawing huge amounts of central government funding and vital resources from the front line. The picture's bleak in the fire service in Scotland, as it is around the country. Over 1,400 frontline firefighters have been cut since the formation of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service in 2013, almost 20% of the workforce. Just over a year ago, we saw the removal of fire appliances, high-reach appliances and the dedicated rescue crews that worked a River Clyde rescue boat. A boat that saved countless lives per year, and it's a travesty that that was taken away. These resources were essential for keeping people safe from fires, floods and other major incidents that we're all too familiar with. It's the same story across the UK. Firefighters cut, stations closed, fire appliances removed, sometimes under the cover of darkness, and it's all in the name of saving money. None of it's made us safer, none of it's made our community safer. It has to stop. Some services, like Dorset Wiltshire and Royal Berkshire, I had to ask Matt how to say Berkshire, are currently trying to force through another wave of cuts, as is our own service. We have united and fought back against the worst of these attacks through our union, but now we need to rebuild. This is our chance with a new Labour government. We desperately need investment to replace the resources we have lost to be able to keep the public safe, but we also need more funding to improve the vital resources and services that we provide. Extreme weather events are growing. With the climate catastrophe, we've got new technologies, which I'm sure everyone in this room has been affected by a lithium-ion battery fire, and we need investment to prepare for these future things. They're not unforeseeable. These are very real events that we are already tackling now, and we're tackling it without the funding and investment. We need investment to create better and safer working conditions for ourselves too. It's integral we stay safe. It's a core part of our values. Investment to keep us safe in the stations. We're making great progress on decon, but again, it's around the country. We're all seeing different levels of that. Services can only do what they can do with the investment that they've got. We need more. We are there when the public need us, but it's getting harder and harder for us to get to emergencies on time, with the right equipment, with enough people on board that fire engine to attend. You can't provide this fire cover on a shoestring. Change was the Labour Party's motto in the general election. If this government is serious about changing the country for the better, it must change direction, turn its back on austerity, don't care what they call it, cuts are cuts, lack of funding is austerity. We need to put the public first, put workers first. It's time to deliver that change. It's time to rebuild our fire and rescue services. Thank you.
Thanks, Lewis. And we're going to be staying with the theme of investment and funding now, this time with a video. Many of you will have heard of the Albion Hotel on Brighton seafront. It's been the scene of 2 big fires in recent years, but the fires ended very differently. In the 1990s, the damage was limited, but last year the whole thing had to be demolished. This video tells a story of what happened and why, and it shouldn't be too much of a spoiler to tell you now that cuts had a lot to do with it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the fire started in this wing over here, and there was quite a strong wind coming from the west, which pushed the fire into the building. My name's Leo, I'm a firefighter in East Sussex, and just over a year ago I attended a fire here at the Albion Hotel. On the night of the fire, we had to attend from Hastings to provide support. And Hastings is a long way away from Brighton. It's over 40 miles. And this is becoming more and more common in our service because we just haven't got the resources or the numbers to deal with incidents. So this isn't the first time this building, the Albion, has caught fire. Back in 1998, we attended a large fire here which needed 25 fire engines, but we had much more fire engines and much more firefighters. This time round, we had to go as far as London to help put this thing out, and as you can see, we didn't save it. 25 years ago, we'd have probably saved that building, but because of the lack of numbers of firefighters and the cuts that we faced, we couldn't.
Because across the UK, we've lost over 12,000 firefighters. That's 1 in 5. We've seen control rooms close, we've seen fire stations close, and our attendance times are the highest they've ever been.
So what do we want and what do we need? More commitment from the government. We need more investment. We need more firefighters. We need more fire engines to be on the run.
Behind me, we lost a hotel due to fire cuts. But all across the UK, we're losing people's homes, businesses, we're seeing infrastructure destroyed, and in the saddest cases, we're losing lives.
We're asking for a commitment. We're asking for more firefighters, more fire engines, so things like this don't happen again.
Comrades, we're now going to be looking at another crucial issue facing our profession, crewing levels. Many members of the public would assume if they call a fire engine, there will be enough firefighters on board to safely tackle a fire or any other incident that we attend. But as we all know, that isn't always the case. Retained firefighters are a hugely important part of our union, but in many areas they are facing the worst cuts to crewing that we see. We're now going to hear from someone at the front line of fighting crews of 3 in Staffordshire, so please give a warm welcome to Craig Elson. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Elson. I'm a firefighter of 21 years and based in Burton-on-Trent and a proud trade unionist for over 35 years. Like everyone within this room, I joined the fire service to help people. However, keeping our communities safe has become increasingly difficult. Our service has become within the crosshairs of the government leaders and ministers for decades now, with austerity experiments, attacks on pensions, cuts in excess of 12,000 jobs since 2010, and our terms and conditions pulverised with bombardments on our terms and conditions. Notably, our fire chiefs have free rein to create their own bespoke policies on the nation's fire cover, coinciding with using that autonomy to cut crews to unsafe levels. Staffordshire no longer possesses a fire authority, replaced only with a Police and Fire Crime Commissioner, and a Tory one at that. To say his knowledge of our profession is poor is an understatement, but all these comments conveniently served in the form of sound bites distorted figures of success, and blatant misinformation from our hierarchy. In 2003, I joined a watch that had 16 members. We crewed 5 separate appliances, and at times all members and all appliances would depart for the same incident ground. Now in 2024, we have 1 PRL, 1 ALP, and a firefighter decon van. Crew members on duty for this resource? 4. Maybe the odd day in a year, we get the magic number of 5. Our fire station, meaning only 1 appliance can leave the fire station on a shout. Our chief stressed to us that 4 on a whole-time appliance would be the exception, not the norm. However, figures that we created or located within the fire service, the numbers of appliances that went out with 4 personnel was 70%, yet another fallacy from their hierarchy. For retained members in Staffordshire and other brigades across the UK, it's even worse. Our service declares it as a success at the moment, extending its 3-rider trial further, with the FBU in Staffordshire acutely aware of its drive to improve pump availability and improvement in attendance times. We're now seeing crews of 3 reaching incidents beyond their capacity and left with an impossible choice: wait for backup of appliances and crew whilst the fire and incident worsens before them, or act and put our jobs and lives at risk. A truly abhorrent choice to consider. Chief fire officers have been setting attendance times without oversight, which in turn is creating a postcode lottery in public safety. Our bosses are effectively setting their own homework and marking it themselves for far too long. Comrades, we the firefighters deserve a say in the policies that affect not just our communities we protect, but the health and safety of you and I. That is why today we demand national standards and a national body that we sit upon with legal standing to aid and ensure our expertise is never ignored. To close, comrades, we must stand with a united voice and instruct the new government across there. It's time to rebuild our broken and fragmented fire service. It's time to deliver. Thank you.
Right, comrades, you might have noticed a wardrobe change. So if you've got a red t-shirt and you haven't got it on yet, would you mind trying to put it on if you are able? Because we are going to do a photo shoot now. Now, what has been so far a well-organised day could turn into total chaos now. I'm going to explain this, so listen while you're changing. Jess is going to take a photo from up here on the stage. First of all sat down. Then I'm going to ask you all to stand up. And then, while you're all in that position, Jess is then going to sprint to the top left and take another picture looking down, so she gets the stage and everything in. Does that sound pretty reasonable? Okay, Jess, are you about ready? So, everybody sat down first of all. Right, everybody, about 10. You soon forgot that. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your cooperation on that one. Right, if you come back to order, please. We're now going to get on with our speakers. And I am absolutely delighted to introduce the first of our international speakers. His name is Mauro Giulianella, and he is one of the leading voices for firefighters over in Italy as a national coordinator for the firefighter section of the FP-CGIL Union. Mauro will be speaking to us through an interpreter. He's come a long way to be with us, along with Andrea. He's a fantastic speaker, so please give a massive welcome to Mauro and his interpreter, our very own national officer, Riccardo Latorre.
Care compagni, care compagne, la funzione pubblica CGIL nel 2022 ha avuto la straordinaria opportunità di far conoscere le condizioni di lavoro dei Vigili del Fuoco italiani alla conferenza nazionale FBU svoltasi a Brighton. A distanza di 2 anni, più orgogliosi di allora, siamo di nuovo al vostro fianco per sostenere le necessità e le rivendicazioni dei Vigili del Fuoco inglesi, le stesse necessità di tutti i Vigili del Fuoco del mondo. Al nome della nostra segretaria generale Serena Sorrentino ringrazio il segretario generale Matt Brack, il compagno Riccardo Latorre e tutti i funzionari nazionali di FBU. Proseguiremo il nostro percorso straordinario, il nostro lavoro al fianco di FBU nei prossimi anni. Salutiamo il compagno Pablo Sanchez, che vedo qui presente, il quale recentemente ha sostituito Paola Panzeri nel seguire la rete europea dei Vigili del Fuoco di EPSU. A Paola va il ringraziamento particolare per aver contribuito a creare questo forte legame particolarmente sentito con le compagne e i compagni di FBU.
Comrades, thank you for having us here. The FBU CGIL in 2022 had the extraordinary opportunity to raise awareness of the working conditions for firefighters in Italy, Italian firefighters, at the FBU National Conference held in Brighton. 2 years later, we're even prouder to be standing with you again here now and standing side by side with you in calling for the demands and the needs of the British fire brigades, which when we look at them are the same as the needs of the fire brigades all over the world. On behalf of the FPGGL, the General Secretary, Serena Sorrentino, I'd like to thank the FBU General Secretary, Matt Rack, our comrade, Riccardo Latorre, and all FBU members and officials. And we look forward to continuing this extraordinary work together in the coming years. I also notice our comrade Pablo Sanchez present from EPSU, and we'd like to greet him. And he has recently taken over Paola Panzeri in leading the European EPSU Firefighters Network, which we are both a part of. And a special thanks goes to Paola for having contributed to creating these strong bonds between firefighters across Europe, those bonds that I've felt especially with comrades in the FBU.
Lo denunciammo nel 2022 a Brighton, lo ribadiamo qui oggi a Londra. I vigili del fuoco hanno bisogno di più sicurezza e più tutele. Le tragiche immagini di questi ultimi 9 mesi, nel 2024 in Italia, raccontano di 3 pompieri morti nel corso di interventi di soccorso dovuti all'effetto devastante causato dai cambiamenti climatici e quindi da una esposizione a rischio sempre più estremo che evidenzia l'ormai cronica carenza di personale, di DPI e mezzi. Le temperature torride di quest'estate hanno causato incendi violentissimi, anche nei quartieri cittadini. A luglio 2 vigili del fuoco del comando di Matera hanno perso la vita nel corso dello spegnimento di un incendio vegetazione, evidenziando i pericoli crescenti che questi professionisti affrontano.
We stated it in 2022 in Brighton and we reiterate it again here today. The fire brigade needs greater safety, greater conditions and more protection. The tragic images of the last 9 months of 2024 in Italy tells the story of 3 firefighters killed during rescue operations because of the risk that they face due to the effects, the devastating effects of climate change and therefore an increasing exposure to risk, which highlights now chronic shortage of PPE, resources and equipment. The scorching temperatures of this summer has caused incredibly violent fires and we're now seeing them even get into the urban areas in Italy. And in July, we sadly lost 2 firefighters in the Matera command fighting a vegetation fire. This evidences even more the ever-growing risk that we as professionals are facing on the front line.
Recentemente un nostro fratello in servizio a Foggia ha perso la vita durante un'operazione di soccorso di tipo alluvionale. Incendi e alluvioni evidentemente particolarmente violenti che si manifestano repentinamente e che a volte si trasformano in vere e proprie trappole mortali per i vigili del fuoco. In Europa la condizione non ci racconta cose diverse. Donne e uomini che muoiono o rimangono coinvolti in gravi incidenti nei loro luoghi di lavoro nel corso degli interventi. Sono le condizioni non più accettabili per i vigili del fuoco.
Just recently, just a few weeks back, in fact, we lost another brother serving in Foggia who lost his life rescuing people from a flood. So floods and wildfires are incredibly dangerous occurrences that can happen without warning and become death traps for our firefighters. And when we look across Europe this summer, the conditions have been no different as we've seen workers dying in their workplaces in serious accidents due to their operational responses. These are conditions that are no longer acceptable.
La vita ha un valore inestimabile, per questo rimaniamo convinti che la rete di EPSU dei Vigili del Fuoco e le sue connessioni ci permetterà di raggiungere ulteriori grandi obiettivi e quindi questa è la strada giusta da percorrere, compagni e compagne. Lo accennavamo prima, i cambiamenti climatici stanno avendo un impatto significativo sul lavoro dei Vigili del Fuoco in Italia. Con l'aumento delle temperature e con la siccità il rischio di incendi è cresciuto notevolmente.
Life is invaluable and we remain convinced that the EPSU network of firefighters and its connections will allow us to achieve further great goals together. This is therefore the right path to continue on, comrades. I mentioned it before, climate change is having a significant impact on the work of firefighters in Italy with rising temperatures and drought. The risk of wildfire has increased significantly.
La comunità dei Vigili del Fuoco, coloro i quali operano quotidianamente nel soccorso, stanno adattando le loro strategie per affrontare queste nuove sfide, ma lo fanno da soli e a loro spese. Pochi mezzi, poche attrezzature e soprattutto pochi uomini. Serve una maggiore attenzione alla previsione e alla prevenzione degli incendi e degli eventi alluvionali, con piani specifici che tengano conto delle previsioni meteorologiche e che coinvolgano anche le comunità locali.
Those of us professionals who are working in rescue on the front line are adapting our strategies and finding new ways to tackle these challenges, but we're doing it by ourselves, we're funding it ourselves, and we're doing it without assistance. Greater attention is needed to predicting, to forecasting and preventing fires and flood events with specific plans that take into account weather forecasts, but also involve the local communities.
Lottiamo per valorizzare il nostro lavoro e per aumentare la nostra sicurezza e tutela. Con il progetto editoriale della funzione pubblica CGIL, la particella pazza, Decon, i 5, stiamo lottando per migliorare le condizioni di vita, di salute e sicurezza del personale. Abbiamo bisogno di più tutele, di un adeguato numero di DPI per salvaguardare la salute e rafforzare la protezione delle donne e degli uomini che lavorano nei vigili del fuoco, durante la loro vita lavorativa e dopo la pensione. E non possiamo dimenticare i nostri familiari che rischiano anche loro di essere contaminati dalle particelle che portiamo a casa.
We also fight in other ways to protect the safety of the health and safety of our firefighters, and with our own project in Italy, also called Decontamination, to protect from what we call the crazy particle, to fight to improve living and health and safety conditions. We need more protection, adequate PPE and health support, not just for serving firefighters, but also firefighters into retirement. We also can't forget our families who also face this risk as we bring these contaminants home.
La necessità di aumentare la condivisione, la partecipazione e l'inclusione su temi importanti del corpo come il contratto di lavoro e le sue tutele, l'ordinamento professionale, il riconoscimento del ruolo e di lavoro che svolgiamo, la sicurezza e la decontaminazione è molto forte. Siamo ancora fermi dove eravamo. Nessuna malattia professionale riconosciuta per i vigili del fuoco italiani, nessuna risposta su temi come burnout, sindrome dell'umore, sindrome della depressione, supporto psicologici, tutti aspetti che non possono essere sottovalutati, che fanno parte della nostra grande difficoltà. Mancano i dati epidemiologici, di statistiche sugli incendi e sui decessi, senza trascurare i casi sui suicidi che purtroppo interessano il corpo.
We need to continue sharing our knowledge and our battles together between unions to safeguard the health and safety and contracts and protections of firefighters and a recognition of the role and the work that we do. The need to do this is very strong. We are still stuck where we are in Italy, where we don't recognise occupational cancers and occupational diseases. But we also have no answer for mental health issues such as burnout and stress and depressive syndromes. We don't have the data that we required. We don't have the statistics properly recording these incidents at work. And that's not forgetting the increasing case of suicides that unfortunately affect our profession and our service.
Condividiamo e sosteniamo le rivendicazioni di FIBU riguardo la necessità di migliorare le tutele rivolte alle donne, vigili del fuoco e alle questioni di genere. L'aumento dell'indennità di maternità a 52 settimane e al congedo di maternità a stipendio pieno è uno dei tanti obiettivi contrattuali che anche in Italia devono trovare spazio. Il rinnovo del contratto di lavoro scaduto da 1000 giorni, le risorse economiche necessarie a rinnovarlo, la riconquista della perdita del potere di acquisto con l'inflazione al 16% e la lotta contro lo smantellamento dei servizi pubblici e la pubblica amministrazione, la nostra forte contestazione contro la proposta del Governo di distruggere l'unità delle politiche pubbliche e i referendum a favore del lavoro rappresentano il grande sforzo della CGIL. Lo è per chi lavora, lo è per chi il lavoro non ne ha, lo è per i pensionati e lo è rivendicando il diritto universale alle cure e alla vita di tutte e tutti.
We share and support the FBU's claims regarding the need to provide better protection for women firefighters and gender issues. The increase in maternity pay to 52 weeks and where you've achieved that is fantastic. It is something that we also need to find a space for in Italy, which we haven't yet. The CGIL in Italy, so we are currently fighting for the renewal of the firefighters' national contract, which renewed over 1,000 days ago. We're fighting austerity, the dismantling of public services, the dismantling of public administration, and strong opposition to the government's proposal to destroy the unity of public policies. We're also carrying out referendums that favour work and workers' rights. This is just some of the great efforts of the CGIL union. But we do it for those who work, we do it for those who can't work, we do it for those who are seeking a job, we do it for those who are retired, and we do it for those who claim the universal right to care and life. We do it for everyone.
Siamo una grande risorsa per il Paese che proteggiamo. Farci male, ammalarci a causa del lavoro che svolgiamo o morire di lavoro deve essere una responsabilità per il Paese in cui lavoriamo. Con EPSU, con la FBU e con la rete dei Vigili del Fuoco europei possiamo farcela. La vita viene prima di tutto, anche per chi lavora. Chi non si occupa dei cambiamenti climatici mette a rischio la cittadinanza e chi opera nel soccorso. Chi ha la responsabilità di governo e non si occupa della sicurezza dei pompieri ne segna colpevolmente il futuro e il futuro del proprio Paese. Viva i Vigili del Fuoco, viva FBU, viva la CGIL e la rete dei Vigili del Fuoco di EPSU.
We are a great resource for our country and those that we protect. And when we are getting sick at work, when we're getting ill at work, when we are dying at work, that is the responsibility of those countries within which we work. And together, united through the European EPSU Firefighters network, we can achieve our aim. Life comes before everything, but also for workers, not just those we're rescuing. So those who do not deal with climate crisis, those who put firefighters, workers and communities at risk are marking their future and they're marking their country. So I'll end on this, comrades. Long live the Fire Brigade, long live the FBU, long live the FPCGL and long live the EPSU Fire Brigades network. Thank you.
Thank you, Mauro, for that fantastic speech. And now we are going to hear from another inspiring activist from the front line. We've all heard the appalling reports coming out of the various culture reviews within the Fire and Rescue Service. But the fight for equalities in our service isn't just a tale of abuse, discrimination, bullying, harassment practices. It's also a tale of fantastic reps and activists who've been fighting back. So please give a big hand to Emily Hollands from Greater Manchester, who has been doing just that. Emily.
My name is Emily Hollands and I've worked for Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Service for 6 years, both as a firefighter and a fire investigator. I became a firefighter so I could serve my community, and I am proud to be part of a humanitarian profession that saves lives. I'm also a Fairness at Work rep, and in that role I am witness to what life can be like for many people in our fire and rescue service. Too many firefighters, control staff, Green Book members experience bullying, isolation, harassment, abuse and discrimination. I'm an FBU activist because I believe that without the proven power of collective bargaining and without the union of workers, the government and powers that be will continue to degrade the rights and conditions of firefighters. Through collective struggle, we have the power to change the world, and that starts in the place where we work. In Greater Manchester, the FBU has won 52 weeks maternity leave on full pay. But it isn't good enough. enough for us to stop there. It's great that a woman in my brigade gets 52 weeks, but why should a woman next door get less? For pay and conditions, we have the NJC, but to steer the Fire and Rescue Service and inform national standards, we need a statutory advisory body. That way, we advance together. And that applies to equalities just as it applies to crewing or response times. We hear about discrimination and abuse happening all the time at work. Some of us experience it. But what often isn't talked about is that failings go right to the top. The people who lead our service, the NFCC and the chiefs, they've been failing us on this issue for decades. Boys' clubs, cover-ups, double standards. For as long as firefighters and control staff are locked out of decision-making in our sector, things will carry on as they were. We demand change. We demand equality. We demand a voice. It's time for this government to deliver.
Thank you, Emily. So, comrades, Emily and Craig have both spoke about national standards and what they could mean for crewing and equalities, respectively. So now let's talk about health and safety. And I'm sure we'll all agree the Decon campaign has been absolutely brilliant, a fantastic FBU initiative that will undoubtedly save hundreds, if not thousands, of lives in the future. So it now gives me great pleasure to welcome Dave Pitt from West Midlands, who is going to speak on Decon. Dave.
Hello, I'm Dave Pitt and I've been a firefighter for 15 years within West Midlands Fire Service. Comrades, 7 years ago I called a meeting with my group manager to make them aware of the dangers of toxic contaminants on station and at the incident ground. And I was made to feel belittled. I was told my information was unfounded, and I was told that there was no value in what I was saying and that I was scaremongering. Since then, the FBU have launched their Decon campaign, and we have fundamentally changed the way that many firefighters behave before, during, and after an incident to protect ourselves from toxic contaminants. Fire and rescue services across the UK have introduced our decontamination procedures on stations, and some even building new stations with designs based on our recommendations. It is without a doubt that we have made our profession safer for future generations of firefighters due to the hard work of our officials and our members. But looking around this room, I know that many of us will or know of a firefighter who has been diagnosed with cancer or died from it. Of course, we know firefighting is a dangerous job. We run towards danger as others are running away, and we go to fires while others are trying to escape it. Well, exposure to toxic fire effluent is an avoidable risk. Platitudes from politicians that we are heroes, that it's tragic we're dying from these awful diseases, will not save lives. And that's why we are here, to demand the investment we need for equipment in every station so that we can properly decontaminate after incidents, and demand national standards so that it doesn't matter where you work or where you live. Every firefighter should have the access to the resources they need to prevent exposure, and every firefighter should have proper health monitoring to catch and treat cancer, and early. Who are we going to rely on to give us these resources? No one. We have to fight for it for ourselves. Come on! We can prevent unnecessary suffering and deaths. Let's do it for our comrades who have lost their lives to cancer. Let's do it for future generations of firefighters. Let's tell our senior managers, our CFOs, our CEOs, our councillors, our MPs and the government, we are the FBU. We ain't going anywhere. It's time to step up and it's time to deliver. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Dave. Comrades, we've heard a lot about national standard during this rally, and for some people, especially those of us who are old enough to remember them, looking around here, not very many. National standards, they're an easy concept to understand if you're around them, but we know that everyone will not know what they mean, and that includes members of the public and the politicians who we are here to convince that they are what we need in the fire and rescue service to stop the postcode lottery and the race to the bottom that we've seen. So we're now going to show an animation video which explains the concept really well. This is the first time this video has been seen outside of head office, so I hope you enjoy it, and then hopefully it will be then circulated on social media. Thank you.
The Fire and Rescue Service is vital to public safety. It's there when you need it most. Now, we face climate change, a housing crisis, and an ageing population. That means greater risk from fires, floods, and extreme weather events. But after years of cuts and decades of fragmentation, the fire service is in crisis. As a patchwork of different services, operating with different governance structures, it lacks agreed standards. Fire is devolved in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, and England has dozens of separate services. There is a postcode lottery on fire cover. If you called a fire engine now, it would take an average of 9 minutes and 13 seconds to arrive, 3 minutes slower than in 1995. There are no national standards on what training the firefighters attending have received, how they were recruited, or even what equipment they use. And in some areas, crewing levels have been eroded so much that there wouldn't be enough firefighters on the appliance to respond effectively. How did we get here? For 50 years, the Central Fire Brigades Advisory Council, CFBAC, agreed national standards. It gave frontline firefighters real influence with government. But in 2004, the government scrapped it and largely gave the job of steering the fire service to Chief Fire Officers and the National Fire Chiefs Council, NFCC. Unlike real representative bodies, the NFCC is a private company which gets millions from central government. It shuts frontline firefighters and their union out of decision-making, and its flawed decision-making has proved disastrous. The Waking Watch system it proposed after Grenfell has cost residents a fortune, but not made them safer. It has proposed sending firefighters past the safe point in high-rise fires without activated breathing apparatus, putting their health and lives at risk. And on its watch, the fire service has been cut to ribbons. 1 in 5 firefighter jobs has been lost. Now, with a new government, we have an opportunity to turn the tide. Before the election, Labour promised to re-establish national standards and to set up a new body to advise ministers on how the fire service is run. The FBU wants this body to be statutory, like the CFBAC was. It must be a representative committee that preserves the interests of workers and the public, acting on the best technical and professional advice. It needs to include the FBU at all levels and bring together employers, firefighters, the Home Office, fire chiefs and other key stakeholders so that we can shape a joined-up, resilient fire service that is fit for the future. As our climate changes and we face new dangers, the Labour government must deliver. Firefighters are the experts. It's time to give them a voice.
Okay, comrades, we're now moving into the last section, and I think every single person in this hall would agree that our control rooms are an absolutely vital part of the fire and rescue team. From that first call, From that first call to mobilising us and throughout any incident and beyond, we cannot function without our brilliant members in control rooms. I think we all can agree that the right to strike and organise all of our members is essential to what our union does. In recent years, the Tory government sought to restrict our ability to stand up for ourselves, including the potential to impose what was effectively a ban on our members striking, none more so than our control members. I'm now going to hand over to someone who can tell us in detail about control, strikes, the anti-union laws, because she played an absolutely pivotal role in organising the famous Essex control strike. Brothers and sisters, give a big, massive warm welcome to Emma Polly.
Thank you very much. My name is Emma Polly. I work in the Essex Control Room, and I'm here today to tell you about the first ever control-only strike in the FBU's history. In 2014 and 2015, management tried to tear up our terms and conditions. They ripped up our shift patterns, changed our rest periods, entitlement, and they did this without any kind of consultation. I say without consultation. They held meetings with us, but in fact, they literally just laughed in our faces. Well, the joke was on them. The Essex Control Room agreed to be balloted for strike action. We were tiny in number, but the leverage was immense. And management never expected us to have such strong backing from firefighters across the county. This was a strike that made every one of us realise that the FBU really is for everyone. I've never been so proud. We called a variety of action, some intermittent, some all out. Our longest strike was 9 days solid, and instead of naming all the days at once, we named them one by one. Management didn't like that. As a workforce of mostly women fighting arrogant bullying, all male senior managers, it was a pleasure to get to national news headlines by striking through Mother's Day. It was also a pleasure to see their faces when we held barbecues on the picket lines. Management didn't like that either. But most of all, they didn't like that we turned out to be strong, not weak, and they certainly did not like losing. I didn't come into the fire service to strike, I joined to save lives. But to defend public safety, we must be able to defend our working conditions. And sometimes that means taking industrial action. And here's the problem. What we did 9 years ago was effectively banned under the Tories. In theory, the Minimum Service Level Act stopped us from taking lawful and effective strike action in England. It's almost a strike ban across the fire service, but in control, it's pretty much total. Before the election, Labour promised to scrap that law, and quickly. I'm here today to make sure they don't forget that promise. When you see your MPs this afternoon, I hope you'll remind them of it. Thank you for your time and solidarity.
Thank you, Emma. That was brilliant to hear. And now we're going to hear from our second of our two international speakers, a representative of firefighters in Greece. Nikos Lavranos is the president of the Pan-Hellenic Federation of Fire Service Employees. And like Mauro, he'll be speaking through a translator. So please give a massive welcome to Nikos. Thank you.
Πρόεδρε της Fire Brigade Union, αγαπητό Προεδρείο, αξιότιμοι προσκεκλημένοι, συναδέλφισες και συνάδελφοι της Αγγλίας, νιώθω ιδιαίτερη χαρά αλλά και τιμή για την πρόσκληση της Ομοσπονδίας μου σε αυτό το πανεθνικό σας συλλαλητήριο.
Dear President of the FBU, Executive Committee of the FBU, and esteemed guests, I am particularly happy, I have a particular joy to be present here today, and
ως πρόεδρος της Πανελλήνιας Ομοσπονδίας Ενώσεων Υπαλλήλων Πυροσβεστικού Σώματος, του πιο ιστορικού με 36 χρόνια παρουσίας και έργου και μεγαλύτερου συνδικαλιστικού φορέα της Ελλάδος, με χιλιάδες μέλη που ολοένα και αυξάνονται, αποδέχτηκα χωρίς πολλή σκέψη την πρόσκληση του συνδικάτου σας. Οι λόγοι πολλοί και προφανείς.
And as president of the largest union body of firefighters in Greece, which is the most historic as well, as has been there for 36 years, I must say that I didn't give it a lot of thought before accepting the superb invitation for me to attend this event in London today.
Ο σημαντικότερος εξ αυτών είναι η αλληλεγγύη μεταξύ των πυροσβεστών ανά την Ιφίλιο. Μια αλληλεγγύη που αποτελεί άλλωστε και βασικό γνώρισμα της εργασίας του πυροσβέστη, αφού ποτέ ένας πυροσβέστης δεν μπορεί και δεν πρέπει να δουλεύει μόνος του.
The main reason that really brings me here is the esteem that I have to the concept of solidarity, empathic solidarity between all of us firefighters around the world.
Μια αλληλεγγύη που πλέον αρχίζει και γίνεται επιτακτική ανάγκη για όλους τους πυροσβέστες απέναντι στην εργασιακή κατάσταση που έχει παγιωθεί τα τελευταία χρόνια στις περισσότερες χώρες της Ευρώπης.
This solidarity and the need for this solidarity is becoming more and more crucial, important and felt by all firefighters due to the work-labour circumstances that the firefighters have got to and are going through throughout their working in Europe and around the world.
Μια κατάσταση που με λίγα λόγια δεν δημιουργεί και δεν επιτρέπει τις ιδανικές και απαραίτητες συνθήκες μέσα από τις οποίες ο πυροσβέστης θα επιχειρεί μέσα σε ένα πλαίσιο ασφάλειας και υγιεινής, ώστε να πετύχει το επιθυμητό αποτέλεσμα πάνω σε αυτό που ακριβώς έχει ως πυροσβεστικό προορισμό: την προάσπιση της ανθρώπινης ζωής, τη διαφύλαξη της δημόσιας υγείας, του φυσικού και πολιτισμικού μας πλούτου, χωρίς να κινδυνεύει ταυτόχρονα και ο ίδιος.
This is a context that does not allow at all, unfortunately, any of the helping situation to develop that would help firefighters to achieve their purpose and aim as they work, which aims are to protect the life of people, to protect and preserve our natural and cultural environment.
Η αλληλεγγύη, λοιπόν, συνάδελφοι, μαζί με το επικίνδυνο της εργασίας μας και το άσβεστο πάθος για τη δουλειά μας, πρέπει να αποτελέσουν τα απαραίτητα αυτά χαρακτηριστικά πάνω στα οποία θα πρέπει όλα τα συνδικάτα της Ευρώπης να βάλουμε στέρεες βάσεις, ώστε να αποτρέψουμε τον εργασιακό μεσαίωνα που έχει επιβληθεί και να αντιστρέψουμε την κατάσταση, φέρνοντας τον πυροσβέστη εκεί που πρέπει, ψηλά στη συνείδηση των συμπολιτών μας αλλά και του ίδιου του κράτους.
So our solidarity and our joint effort to face this fast developing situation of labour medievalism, of being brought back to work conditions, labour conditions of the medieval ages. This should bring us together to fight these conditions and bring back, raise the level of esteem that firefighters should be having from the society and governments all around the world because of the quality of the work that they deliver.
Συνάδελφοι, η κλιματική αλλαγή αποτελεί πλέον την επίσημη δικαιολογία του κάθε κράτους για τις τεράστιες καταστροφές, αλλά και απώλεια σε ανθρώπινο δυναμικό μετά από κάθε συμβάν πυρκαγιάς, πλημμύρας και θεομηνίας. Μια κλιματική αλλαγή που δεν πρέπει όμως να αποτελεί την μόνιμη καραμέλα των πολιτικών μας.
Climate change is the reason that so many disasters are happening nowadays. But climate change as trivialized concept should not be forming the lollipop that our politicians currently nowadays use to consider as cause of all the justifying all the wildfires, flooding and disasters that continually are happening.
Απέναντίας, γνωρίζαμε ότι αυτή συντελείται εδώ και δεκαετίες και συνεχίζει να εξελίσσεται με ταχύτατους και ακραίους ρυθμούς, ευνηδιάζοντας ακόμα και τους πιο έγκριτους επιστήμονες.
It has been quite a few decades now that we are observing climate change and its advancing attacks to nature and civilization. That's happening, and this is happening. This is the standing circumstance as we speak.
Αλλά κυρίες και κύριοι, βιώνουμε ταυτόχρονα τις συνέπειες κλιματικής αλλαγής, την περιβόητη κλιματική κρίση και δεν υπάρχει καμία δικαιολογία από κανένα κράτος για την έλλειψη πρόβλεψης, πρόληψης, λήψης δραστικών μέτρων απέναντι στην επέλαση της κλιματικής αλλαγής.
As we simultaneously, all of us, experience the outcomes and disastrous results that this climate change has got toward populations, we must remember that we should never forget the non-taking of measures by governments who do not provide with prevention and solutions, drastic solutions to these circumstances.
Προφανώς και οι περισσότερες χώρες δεν πήραν στα σοβαρά το μείζον αυτό θέμα, με αποτέλεσμα ο κοινός παρονομαστής απέναντι σε αυτή την κλιματική λέλαπα να αποτελεί ο πυροσβέστης.
It is obvious and clear that not many governments have taken any measures, effective measures in this situation, and what is a common denominator in all countries is that firefighters are the ones who are left practically unprotected and alone to face and fight these disastrous situations.
Ένας πυροσβέστης που εκφράζει και αποτελεί το κύριο επιχειρησιακό βραχίωνα της πολιτικής προστασίας στο σύνολο σχεδόν των χωρών της Ευρώπης. Πυροσβέστες που αφέθηκαν μόνοι τους, με γυμνά χέρια, απροστάτευτοι και υπό άνισες συνθήκες να αντιμετωπίζουν όλα αυτά τα χρόνια τις ανυπρέβλητες αυτές καταστάσεις, χωρίς κανένα ίχνος ευαισθησίας από τους κυβερνώντες.
All alone firefighters are trying to face and fight the disasters, and there's no particular show of any empathy or sensitivity toward helping them in their work by governments around the world and Europe.
Συνάδελφοι, αυτό που χαρακτηρίζει το επάγγελμά μας είναι ο κίνδυνος. Ο κίνδυνος της απώλειας της ίδιας μας της ζωής κατά τη διάρκεια των επιχειρήσεων.
What is characteristic, the most characteristic element in our profession is hazard and danger. How do we save the others and protect ourselves throughout our labor, our work, during the operations of rescue and salvation?
Δυστυχώς, μέσα σε ένα μήνα απολέσαμε αρκετούς συναδέλφους σε όλη την Ευρώπη, είτε σε συμβάντα δασικού τύπου, είτε σε πλημμύρες.
It was a very sad event that within a period of just 1 month, we lost so many colleagues due to these disastrous events that happened this last summer.
Ένας συνάδελφος εποχικός στην Ελλάδα λόγω των εξαντλητικών ωραρίων. 3 συνάδελφοι στην Πορτογαλία, 1 στην Αυστρία, στη Γερμανία και στην Ιταλία με αποκορύφωμα των μόλις 15 ημερών συνταξιούχο συνάδελφο.
There was 1 colleague in Greece, 3 in Italy,
Portugal.
In Portugal. How many in Italy?
1 Austria, Germany.
Yeah. 3 in Germany and 1 in Italy. 3 in Italy, whom we lost this last summer.
Περιστατικά τα οποία αποδεικνύουν με τον πιο δυσάρεστο και εμφατικό τρόπο ότι το επάγγελμα του πυροσβέστη αποτελεί την επιτομή του επικίνδυνου και ανθυγιεινού.
And of course, these are the unfortunate and very sad events that emphatically and sorrowfully show how hazardous our job, our occupation is.
Αν δεν είναι το επάγγελμά μας επικίνδυνο, τότε ποιο είναι? Ένα επάγγελμα που έχει έως και 7 χρόνια λιγότερο μέσο όρο ζωής από ό,τι τα άλλα επαγγέλματα. Ένα επάγγελμα που έχει τα πιο υψηλά ποσοστά θνησιμότητας έως και τα πρώτα 3 έτη μετά τη συνταξιοδότηση. Ένα επάγγελμα που παρουσιάζει τα υψηλότερα ποσοστά εμφάνισης καρκίνου και μάλιστα όλων των μορφών καρκίνου.
It is a very hazardous, very dangerous job, our profession, our job. It holds the largest numbers of development of cancer to the firefighters, and there is a kind of threshold limit of death of about 3 years after retirement for each one of us predicted.
Η μία αναγνώριση και ο χαρακτηρισμός του επαγγέλματός μας ως επικίνδυνο και αφηγηνό εν έτη 2024, τουλάχιστον στην πατρίδα μου, αποτελεί προκλητική ασέβεια πρωτίστως προς τους 66 νεκρούς συναδέλφους μου εν ώρα καθήκοντος από την ίδρυση του Πυροσβεστικού Σώματος, καθώς και στους εν ενεργεία συναδέλφους μου.
The non-recognition, at least in my country, of the profession of the firefighter as as a dangerous and unhealthy occupation is a real offense, an insult to anyone who is working in this occupation. It is also the greater offense to people, the 66 victims altogether, who died in their job, doing their duty, the past years, ever since the Fire Brigade Union of Greece was founded.
Για ακόμα ένα καλοκαίρι, οι πυροσβέστες στην Ελλάδα έζησαν εφιαλτικές στιγμές και καταστάσεις. Κλήθηκαν σε πάνω από 5.000 αγροτοδασικές πυρκαγιές, τις οποίες αντιμετώπισαν σχεδόν όλες με απόλυτη επιτυχία, με άριστο επαγγελματισμό, μνημειώδη αυταπάρνηση και ηρωισμό σε πολλές των περιπτώσεων.
One more summer for the Greek firefighters has been horrendous. They had to be called to 5,000 wildfires around the country, which they did in the greatest standards of professionalism and heroically, we may well say, from their part, yeah.
Από τύχη και βοήθεια του Θεού δεν θρηνήσαμε περισσότερα θύματα. Και όλα αυτά μέσα από μια πρωτοφανή τακτική εκ μέρους της φυσικής αλλά και της πολιτικής μας ηγεσίας, με την οποία καταπάτησαν θεμελιώδη εδώ και χρόνια εργασιακά δικαιώματα των συναδέλφων μου.
It was purely out of chance, I may say, or God's hand was there protecting us during this tremendous effort that we put forward in such a terrible natural environment attack from nature. And it's a shame that the government was not there for us to recognize, appreciate, and reward, or at least protect our efforts this summer.
Καταστρατήγησαν κάθε έννοια ωραρίου και φυσικά εξαναγκασμό των συναδέλφων μου σε συνεχή υπερεργασία από τις αρχές Απριλίου έως και σήμερα. Μια υπερεργασία που φυσικά είναι μη αμοιβόμενη.
The government defied every sense, every concept, every bit of value that was there in the human resources in the firefighting service in Greece. We had to work very long hours. Nobody really cared about the hours that we had to go and work during. And
το έκτακτο μέτρο της γενικής ή μερικής επιφυλακής έχει καταστεί πλέον κανόνας εργασίας και αποτελεί τη λεγόμενη δωρεάν εργασία των πυροσβεστών.
And this led to the continuous vigilance, the continuous standby hours to be increased so much. Every hour is practically a standby hour, an alert hour for the firefighters nowadays, without any extra payments for the labor offered.
Οι πυροσβέστες στην Ελλάδα δίνουν τιτάνιες μάχες με απαρχαιωμένο επίγειο και εναέριο στόλο, οχήματα ηλικίας πάνω από 25 και 30 ετών και αεροπλάνα από τη δεκαετία του 1970.
Furthermore, the Greek firefighters have to go out and put out fires and save people with no proper safety gear, which is worn and tatty. Our equipment is extremely old and rusty, and our land and air fleets, our ground and air fleets are antiquated. They go back to the 1970s, over half a century ago they were made.
Με φτωχά και μη ασφαλή μέσα ατομικής προστασίας, με φθαρμένο και διαλυμένο εξοπλισμό.
All our equipment, all our safety equipment, our safety gear is worn, and our equipment is equally inadequate. It's unsafe, unhealthy for the firefighters to go and do their job in Greece.
Διαβάζοντας τα αιτήματά σας, πιστέψτε με, δεν διαφέρουν σχεδόν καθόλου από τα πάγια και διαχρονικά αιτήματα της Ομοσπονδίας μας και πιστεύω και στις περισσότερες χώρες της Ευρώπης. Οι πυροσβέστες έχουν σχεδόν τα ίδια προβλήματα. Ήρθε η ώρα, πιστεύω, να αναλάβουμε δράση εμείς τα συνδικάτα.
Having gone through your own demands, claims for better equipment, and all the problems that you spread out in your presentations, I must assure you, we are facing exactly the same problems, and the time has come that we should stand up and face these problems and demand better work conditions for the firefighters everywhere.
Fire Brigade Union. Μην ξεχνάμε ότι σκοπός και προορισμός μας είναι η προάσπιση των εργασιακών μας δικαιωμάτων και τα κεκτημένα των συναδέλφων μας που πλήττονται βάναυσα τα τελευταία χρόνια.
Dear colleague, firefighters, we must not forget that our aim and purpose as we stand is that we do not allow our achievement, labour achievements of the past many years go AWOL, and we have to be there to not only preserve what has been given to us, but demand for more and better conditions of work.
Η απαξίωση και ο επεγμός στους ήρωες, όπως συχνά μας αποκαλούν, πρέπει να σταματήσει.
The derogatory remarks and the jeering of the firefighters and their demands has got to stop.
Το επάγγελμά μας δεν είναι ένα απλό επάγγελμα βιοπορισμού. Είναι λειτουργήμα. Μία απρόσκοπτη, ατελείωτη και ανιδιοτελή προσφορά παροχής βοήθειας προς τον συνάνθρωπό μας και την πατρίδα μας.
Our profession is not just a series of jobs to secure us living, a livelihood. It is a service toward humanity which we deliver with great passion, will to serve, and devotion, dedication to what we do, to the service that we offer to the people.
Δεν υπάρχει μεγαλύτερη ανταμοιβή από ένα σφίξιμο χεριού, μια αγκαλιά, ένα βλέμμα ευγνωμοσύνης από κάποιον συμπολίτη μας που μόλις έχουμε βοηθήσει.
There's no bigger reward than an embrace, relieved shake of hands, a look in the eyes that tells the gratitude that a person holds, people hold toward us because we have saved them, we have helped them. There's no bigger reward than that.
Σας καλούμε, κύριοι των κυβερνήσεων, να πράξετε το καθήκον σας απέναντί μας, στηρίζοντας ηθικά και έμπρακτα το θεάρεστο έργο μας. Στηρίξτε την πυροσβέστρια, στηρίξτε και τον πυροσβέστη. Εύχομαι καλά αποτελέσματα στη συνδιάσκεψή σας και να ευχαριστήσω εκ νέου για την πρόσκληση.
So, we call all the responsible gentlemen of governments here in Greece, in Europe, around the world, to come forward and do their duty, and doing their duty, support and reward the offering job of firefighters everywhere in the world. And this is a message that I give to your union as well, for us firefighters all over the world to fight together for our recognition of humanitarian work and service.
Fire Brigade Union, I'm very proud to be here. Thank you.
Fire Brigade Union.
Nikos, thank you for joining us today, making the long journey. Thank you very much. Our next speaker barely needs any introduction whatsoever. She's been there for firefighters since day one, since she became an MP, fighting for our interests in the House of Commons day in, day out. So please give the chair of the FPU's Parliamentary Group and one of the best MPs sitting in Parliament a big welcome, Zara Sultana.
Hi everyone, I'm Zara Sultana, the MP for Coventry South, and I heard that there will be samosas at the end of this, so I'm going to have to let you all know that I might be declaring a freebie or two after this event. I'm proud to be the FBU's Parliamentary Chair, a union that has a proud history of standing up for justice, from opposing apartheid in South Africa to supporting the Palestinian people. And I want to begin by giving my full solidarity with the people of Palestine and Lebanon as they face continued bombardment. I want to give solidarity to your comrades in the region who are delivering emergency services day in, day out, trying to save lives. And in Parliament, I'm doing everything I can to push for an immediate ceasefire, a return of all the hostages, and an end to our government's complicity through arms sales. You cannot speak the words of peace on one hand, but also arm the very government that is raining down terror on Palestinians and the Lebanese people. That does not make sense. So let me be clear, change does not come from Westminster, and it definitely doesn't come easily. It comes from outside pressure from people like you, firefighters, trade unionists, and workers. And that's why we're here today, because Westminster's long neglect of fire and rescue services is a disgrace. For more than a decade, under successive Conservative governments, we've seen brutal cuts to frontline firefighting, with 1 in 5 jobs lost. That's over 12,000 firefighters gone. Central government funding had been slashed by 30% and your pay eroded, forcing some of your colleagues to use food banks. And the consequences of these cuts are life-threatening. Fire stations across the country have been forced shut, and response times are at a record high. This is unacceptable. The devastating floods we saw during Storm Babbitt show how stretched the fire service has become. And yet in England, there is still no statutory duty to respond to floods. Let that sink in. With the climate crisis only escalating, there will be more frequent and more extreme weather events. Firefighters, you are on the front line of this crisis, yet you're being asked to do more with less. The situation is clear. 14 years of Conservative rule have left our fire service in crisis. 14 years of fire chiefs at every step of the way have also toed the Tory line that has attacked your service, and for that they should also hang their heads in shame. You do not manage cuts, you fight them every single day. And with a new Labour government, we need proper change. That's what people voted for, and that's what I'll be fighting for to be delivered. Your service is a humanitarian service. You save lives every single day, and that cannot be done on the cheap. And chief fire officers need to understand that, and the new government also needs to bear that in mind going forward. Despite this, the FBU has been able to push back against the tide with huge resolve over the past 14 years. Through your collective bargaining structures, you've been able to, amongst so many things, negotiate life-saving humanitarian assistance during COVID, increases in maternity pay entitlements, pay increases, and an uplift in the retainer fee. The protection of the NJC and your collective bargaining was committed to by this government and secured by the FBU, and long may it continue. That's why before this election, I, of course, fully supported the FBU's Firefighter Manifesto, which called for an immediate and urgent cash injection into the fire service. But we know it's more than just money. We need robust fire safety standards in housing to make sure that there is never another Grenfell tragedy. We demand justice for Grenfell, for the victims, for the survivors, and for the firefighters who risked their lives that night. The Firefighter Manifesto also rightly called for action on the climate crisis. Firefighters must be resourced and trained to deal with floods and extreme weather events, and the future of the fire service must be rooted in respect for your expertise, for your lives, and for the communities that you protect. That means the delivery of a statutory advisory body to oversee national standards for response times, for crewing levels, and safety practices. You must have a real voice in how the service is run, and we need to ensure that that service is publicly owned and democratically controlled. Governance arrangements between fire and police should be distinct. The fire and rescue service is not law and order, it's a humanitarian service, and those lines should never blur. Like across the public sector, we do not want to see any more fragmentation, any more privatisation, any more deregulation, and no more contracting out. So-called red tape and democratic accountability saves lives, period. And crucially, the right to strike must be protected. That means repealing all anti-union laws, and I'm glad that this Labour government has been the draconian Minimum Service Levels Act, which was an effective ban on strike action, and the FBU played a significant role in opposing that, so well done. I also want to commend the union's leadership in developing and now delivering Labour's New Deal for working people, the set of policies that will finally start to roll back 4 decades worth of Thatcherite anti-union laws. This upcoming Employment Rights Act is a stepping stone, and I know that the FBU will be at the forefront of demanding more rights for workers. And you should know by now that whether it's tomorrow, next week, or next year, I will always stand with you, and that means even on the picket line. Let me be clear, I fully support their Fight for 52 campaign to secure proper maternity arrangements. And of course, there's been promising announcements from some brigades, including my home region, big up the West Midlands. If we can get it right, everyone can. And it's not just the fire service that desperately needs investment. From teachers to NHS staff, from rail workers to Coventry's Amazon warehouse workers, the working class in this country is being squeezed like never before. Public services have been gutted, living standards have been crushed, and the Tories offered nothing but scapegoating and division. The Labour Party, my party, must deliver more than just tweaking around the edges. We need bold, transformative policies. We need to tax the wealthiest. We need to rebuild our public services. We need to bring mail, water, and energy into public ownership, as well as rail, which is obviously already underway. And also expanding sectoral collective bargaining across all industries, just like firefighters have benefited from, to give back power to all workers. And yes, the Grenfell inquiry must deliver justice. It is vital that every single person responsible, from government ministers to corporate executives, are held accountable, and that sweeping changes are made to ensure that a tragedy like Grenfell never happens again. I will never forget the 72. I'm sure every person in this room will never forget the 72, and we must fight to ensure that justice is delivered. The fire and rescue service has to be central to delivering these safety standards. And before I end, I want to put on my personal thanks to the FBU, as well as Matt and Ian, for their personal support in raising the issue of Islamophobia and racism within the Labour Party and wider society, and the promptness in calling out the far-right riots we saw over the summer for what they are: racist, anti-migrant, and Islamophobic, and for mobilising members into supporting local communities across the country. Thank you to the FBU for putting your principles into action. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, the enemy of the working class travels by private jet, not migrant dinghy, and I wish more of my colleagues understood that. You have sounded an emergency call today. You've demanded real action from politicians, not just talk. I'm here to tell you that I will always fight for you and our class in Parliament and on the streets. You deserve respect, fair pay, and the resources to keep the public safe. I will not stop until you get it. Thank you for everything that you do. Solidarity.
Thanks, Zara, for that. Absolutely brilliant. I told you she was best MP in Parliament, definitely. Right, and now on to our final speaker. Doesn't really need any introduction. You all know who he is. He's been our General Secretary through the toughest times in our history. He's now going to set out here what our strategy is and what we're going to do next. So please put your hands together. Massive welcome to General Secretary Matt Rack. Thank you.
Thanks Ian, thanks comrades. Just before we start, could we do a little task? This is being live streamed and there's someone who's watching who would have loved to have been here. You all know Tam McFarlane, our national officer, and Tam has unfortunately been very, very seriously unwell for a long time. And he's greatly missed. He's fantastic at events like this. He's a fantastic compere. He brings humour, bad jokes and sometimes bad songs to these events. He also loves providing you with T-shirts and caps and so on. He is watching on live stream, so if you've got 4 words to say, get well soon, Tam. Do you think you can do that? After 3, all together. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. And I know he is watching, and that will mean a lot to him. Comrades, I want to start by an enormous thank you to everyone here. What a fantastic event it is to be here today. The union, the Fire Brigade Union, doesn't exist as a rule book. It's not the property of officials. It's not the property of general secretaries or presidents or executive council. The union is you and your workmates in fire stations and emergency fire controls across the UK. And if you take one thing away from this rally today, it is that you are the union. This is the first time we've been together since the general election that took place in July. So let's take a moment to reflect on some of the things that previous government did to our country, to our service, and to our profession over the course of that 14 years. When they arrived in 2010, the Trussell Trust was handing out 61,000 food parcels every year. Last year, it handed out 3.1 million, and 1.1 million of those were to children. Workers in Britain have suffered the worst drop in wages in 200 years. Life expectancy, think about that, in a rich country. Life expectancy has stagnated and even gone into decline. Our NHS, our schools, our communities, they have taken a sledgehammer to every element of public service that they could find. And as everyone in this room knows, and people watching online, they did it to the fire and rescue service too. 1 in 5 firefighter jobs gone. Dozens of fire stations closed, a record number of fire engines axed, and the response, as you saw on the film, slowing response times. I am staggered when people talk about modernisation and we get to fires slower than we did 30 years ago. That is a scandal and a national disgrace, and we're going to challenge it. We've got inadequate crewing levels, we've got inadequate training, we've got appliances off the run every single day because there aren't enough firefighters to crew them. Our pay, our pensions, our conditions have been attacked. They came after us just as they came after every group of worker because of their free market ideology, which puts private profit before the interests of common decency, common interests and public safety. And if you want to see the results of that, visit a food bank or talk to someone receiving delayed cancer treatment, or go down to your local homeless shelter. And of course, in our own profession, if you live in West London, just look up at the shadow of Grenfell Tower and you can see the result of those policies. And we share the pain, the grief and the anger of the bereaved and the survivors of that horrific fire. And I'm sure we will send from this rally our solidarity to that community. But I also want to pay tribute again to the enormous professionalism and heroism, yes, heroism, of the firefighters and control staff, members of the Fire Brigade Union who responded to that horrific event in 2017. It's that ideology, that obsession with deregulation that led to a building being wrapped in material that burned like petrol. And ministers, government ministers, called the changes in rules that allowed that to happen cutting red tape. What they were cutting actually was building safety, fire safety regulations. And it is sickening that in the aftermath of that fire, we saw attempts by certain parts of the media to blame firefighters. I think this union and firefighters have been massively vindicated by the Phase 2 report that has been published in the past few weeks. As well as ideology, there's another word for what the Tories did in government. It's called corruption. Because some people, while you were told to tighten your belts, while people were increasingly using food banks, some people did very, very well, thank you. The wealth of the richest 350 families in Britain is now 975 billion, the same as the size of the economy of Poland. That's the level of inequality we have in this society. And the Tories in government partied while firefighters were driving ambulances during the pandemic. While our members moved the bodies of the deceased and clocked on for a night shift, they handed out dodgy COVID contracts to their mates for unusable PPE. But if we're going to remember that, let's remember another thing as well. They have gone. So let's spare a thought for some of the Tories who lost their seats, sadly, in the general election. Liz Truss, Grant Shapps, Gillian Keegan. What about Jacob Rees-Mogg? And I think probably the favourite for firefighters, and many of you would have been there when this person told lies in Parliament about our pensions. We won the argument, unfortunately we lost the vote, but goodbye to Penny Mordaunt. But, comrades, there's another story to be told about their time in office, because the attacks we faced on our pay weren't just attacks on the service we deliver and on the communities that we serve, they were also a direct attack on our union. When they pushed for operational independence for chief fire officers, they were laying the ground for union busting, for ignoring negotiation and consultation on a massive scale. When they tried to scrap, as they have done for almost 20 years now, the National Joint Council, and to get rid of collective bargaining on our pay and conditions, that was about freezing your voice out of determining your pay and your conditions. And last year, as you've heard, they introduced the latest anti-union legislation, in effect an attempt to ban firefighters from taking lawful and effective industrial action. But, comrades, we've seen them off. The National Joint Council, despite endless predictions that it was finished, the National Joint Council is still there. They have not privatised the Fire and Rescue Service, despite their attempts. The Tory White Paper, which would have further weakened this union and your rights, is all but dead. And that is because of this union and the work that you and your workmates have done up and down the country over the past 14 years to stand up and defend yourself. And you should be very proud of that. We heard about the debate on equalities in the Fire and Rescue Service and the role that we have played. But I also want to urge us to think very carefully. We cannot run away from difficult issues. And the truth is, as we found, we have problems within our own union. And I think the only way to deal with that is to face it squarely and understand the failings that we have made as a union and tackle them head on. If we don't do that, we will be endlessly weakened, because when it comes down to it, if we're not willing to stand up for minorities in our service and in our union, we are allowing people to play divide and rule, and we will be endlessly weakened. So we stand together with our BEAM members, with our LGBT plus members, and with our women members to say we will not accept bullying, harassment and discrimination in this service, and we're going to organise and resist it and change it. We've made progress. Despite all the attacks on us, we've made progress on decon. Our pay campaign, think about that in 2022 and after. We started out with their offer of 2%, and we shifted them through your work and your solidarity to the 7%, 5% and 4% that we delivered in the aftermath of that campaign. That's what you delivered by standing together in unity as a union and saying we're not backing down, and we'll determine how we fight and when we settle. And we need to build on that success. When they came for our pensions, we fought them politically, we fought them on the picket lines, and we took them to court. Our small union took to court the UK government and beat them. And we didn't just beat them for FBU members, we won millions upon millions of pounds for FBU members, but across the entire public sector, that has cost the government £17 billion. Think about that. £17 billion that was stolen off working people by their government, and we won that back. You won that back by being members of the Fire Brigades Union. Now, that's not over. It's not over by a long shot. We've got lots to do on pensions still, and we will carry on fighting for pensions justice. But that's where we stand today. We're the voice, the real voice of the firefighting profession. Unlike other sectors, we have high levels of union membership. And that means that politicians and chief fire officers know if you come after our members, things are going to get very, very difficult for you, because we stand together. We've been bruised, yes, but we are still standing, we're still organised, and we're still fighting back. And now we have a new government, a Labour government. And whatever you think of it, what we have now, and Ian said it in opening, we have an opportunity. And the question is whether we seize that opportunity or not, whether we seize the opportunity to fight for better conditions for all our members and for the future that may affect our service and our profession for decades to come. Throughout our union's history, we've played a crucial role. In the Second World War, this union had to face very difficult issues. Do we recruit auxiliary firefighters? And it caused splits and arguments in our union. And the union took the right decision and recruited auxiliaries into the union and transformed our union in the process, but also increased the influence of our union. We made the case for how do you fight fires on the scale of the Blitz. You don't do it with a fragmented service. And we won that argument. And that meant that in 1945, we were in a unique position to shape the fire service for the post-war period. Those difficult strategic decisions that the Fire Brigades Union took in the 1940s paid dividends in the post-war period. The post-war government created the modern fire service, but the FBU was at the heart of shaping it. But for those who think it's going to be easy under a Labour government, I give this warning. We need to think carefully about our history. Something like a third of our members were around before the changes that New Labour brought in. But let's remember, in 2002 and 2003, a Labour government attacked this union for daring to ask for a pay rise. It was a Labour government which scrapped national standards. So let's not have any illusions that this is going to be an easy fight or an easy campaign. The fragmentation which was created by that opened the door to the austerity that happened after 2010. So we cannot afford to miss the huge opportunity when Labour have made pledges about national standards, Labour have made pledges about a national advisory board. We need to speak with one voice, to stand together, to demand that they deliver that. I can't promise that we will win any of that, by the way. There's no guarantees in life, there's no guarantees in politics, but what we know is we have a strategy that is beginning to bear fruit and is beginning to offer the hope of being delivered. And for the first time in many years, we've got the opportunity to go on the offensive, to demand investment. You know, 2 weeks ago, I think, I was at the Emergency Services Show. And I know that many of our members go in different capacities. And you see all this amazing technology, high-tech breathing apparatus equipment, high-reach appliances and so on. And the same evening, I went on to a call with the Scottish region with members in Shetland, in the Shetland Islands. And what they were saying is, they have fire stations that don't have a toilet. They have fire stations that don't have running water. So what a contradiction. All this technology available and public sector workers in 2024 can't go to the toilet at work. What a disgrace that is in the state of our fire and rescue service. So we will fight for investment, we will fight for pensions justice for every firefighter, retained or whole-time firefighters and control, still working or those retired. We will demand the restoration of national standards. And let's just think what that means. Some of the stories you've heard today, as I say, about a third of our members were there when we had national standards. We had national standards on crewing levels, which meant that on 75% of occasions, the fire service had to guarantee it could deliver 5 and 4 riders attending a fire. No mention of 3. 5 riders and 4 riders on 75% of occasions. So those are the standards that were scrapped, and those are the standards that we need to fight for, although, as I say, there are no guarantees. We need to demand workers' rights, because the only way we organise is through our union. If we're not organised in our union, we will lose every single time. And that's why we demand this government delivers the New Deal for working people in full and as quickly as possible. And that includes scrapping the latest anti-union laws. These are not a wish list, comrades. These things are within our grasp if we organise and campaign for it. It's not an accident that Labour committed to these pledges. It's taken years of careful planning, campaigning within the trade union movement, with politicians, within the Labour Party, and we now have it within our grasp to say, you now need to deliver. We mobilised and we rallied in our thousand. We organised in stations and control rooms and elsewhere. We lobbied locally and nationally. Last year we laid the ground with our Firefighters Manifesto. And behind the scenes with other unions, we were crucial. This union played a crucial part in the fight for workers' rights and the repeal of anti-union laws. We all know, however, what can happen with promises. For every trade union demanding change, there's going to be a business interest resisting us. For every trade union demanding change for workers, frankly, there's going to be a chief officer arguing the opposite case. So let's not let up the pressure. We need to be louder, sharper and clearer. And that's what I'm going to ask you to do right now, to leave this hall and go out to lobby your MPs. But I want to finish by asking you to think about something about our union and our profession I think makes it special. And when I talk about firefighters, I mean everyone. I mean from the call that comes in to the emergency fire control, and the vital role that are played by our comrades there, because without fire control, there is no emergency response. I mean the training department struggling against cuts to deliver decent training to firefighters. I mean fire safety teams who, given the resources and given the training, have the power and ability to make our built environment much safer. So we're not just talking about the person riding the back of the pump on a night shift. But think about that technology point. And there's a point that's made many years ago that firefighting, when it comes down to it, and despite all the technological changes, means this, that a small group of people will enter a smoke-filled and dark premises, not knowing what they're going to find, not knowing precisely what they will need to do, and facing all the risks that that brings along. But they do that based on their knowledge and their skills, and above all, their teamwork. That, if you like, is the essence of our profession, and that, if you like, is the essence of the Fire Brigades Union when we organise properly. Let's build on that essence of teamwork and solidarity and looking after each other as we go forward from here to shape the future of our profession and shape the future of the fire and rescue service for ourselves and for our communities. Have a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Matt. And as I said at the very beginning, just give us a few more minutes, people, before we all shoot off. It isn't job done. This is just the start of the campaign. We've got to lobby the governments in all nations. We've got to lobby at all levels of governance within the Fire and Rescue Service and everywhere we possibly can. Ricardo is going to speak in 2 seconds about how we can green card your MPs, but just before I do that, and save your applause till the very, very end, I've got a list of people I need to thank. Firstly, the FBU Pipers, and the first song they're going to play is the Scotland the Brave, and that's dedicated to Tam, so get well soon, Tam. We've got all the FBU staff who've been here helping today, from every department, the comms, finance, PAs, membership, members, building services. They've all come in and played their part, so a massive thank you to them. Every official who has played a part in putting this event on, because it takes a huge amount of organisation. And finally, the event staff who work here. So thank you. Big round of applause to all of those. Thank you. Right, I'm done for the day. Ricardo is just going to explain the green card process. Go out, lobby the MPs, give them hell, and safe journeys home. Thank you.
Thank you, comrades. For those of you left, look, thank you for coming here today to what I think we'll all agree was a fantastic rally, travelling from every corner of the union to be here, and thank you to all of our guests as well. But look, the rally's over. That brings our rally to the end, but now we need to ask you to go and do the work. We've heard from a long line of fantastic speakers today, giving us the information, giving us the data, giving us what we need for our arguments. But if we just keep those arguments between ourselves or in our heads, we are not going to achieve our aim. So now we need to ask you to do what we've all come here today to do. We need you to get across the road and take those arguments to the decision makers, to the MPs. When you leave this building, you turn right, you go to the end of the road, you'll hit in a Methodist Central Hall, which many of you will know from previous rallies, and you'll see across Parliament Square to your right, Parliament. We need you to head there. If you already have your meetings arranged, which I know many of you do, I need you to liaise, stick with your officials, your regional officials, your brigade officials. They will take you to the appropriate gate, and with the evidence of your meeting, you will get in. For those of you who haven't yet got your meetings arranged, you can still meet your MPs. It's called the green card process. You go to the Cromwell Gate, which I just explained. Your officials will help you get there. You state you're a member of the public who has come to see your MP by green card, and then when you get inside, your officials will show you how to. It's a simple card. You put your name and address on there, and then you get a response from your MP. It's vital as well that you feed back through your officials, through our structures, what MPs you've met, what MPs have refused to meet you, and most importantly, what they've said. It is that information that we will use to plan the next steps of our campaign. So please all get over there. There'll be plenty of time afterwards for socialising. We do what we always do. We be professional, we be polite, and we be what we are best. We are the experts within our profession. We need to get our arguments over into their MPs. There's another few jobs for you. Please do feedback who you meet and what they say, and also take these with you. All the information you require to lobby your MP will be in there. If you don't use them or leave them with your MP, take them back to your stations, make sure they're on the mess tables, make sure they're on the notice boards. And the last thing I'll ask you to do is please scan the QR code on the postcard that is on your seats, and leave your details and let us know that you were here today so we can follow up on what MPs that you met. So that's the end of it. Get over there, take these arguments into Parliament, and one last round of applause for the bagpipers who are going to play us all out. Thank you.